Canada is doomed. Once known as the land of opportunities, multiculturalism, and maple syrup, but today it's facing some serious problems. Inflation is high, housing is ridiculously expensive, unemployment is on the rise, and in just 1 month, over 2 million people had to visit food banks to make ends meet. Oh, and crime? That's on the rise too. It's hard to believe that in 2013, Canada ranked 13th out of 170 countries in meeting the basic needs of its citizens. And by 2023, Canada had already slipped all the way to 39th place. So what the actual happened to Canada? Now, before we get into this roller coaster ride of Canadian chaos, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on more videos like this. Now, let's jump right into the video. A big part of the mess is due to the housing crisis. So what happened with the housing crisis? By now, you have probably heard about Canadian housing crisis. It's not a news anymore and it's been making headlines for a while. So let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Canada's housing market has been in trouble for years, but the cracks became more obvious in the recent times. To understand how we got here, let's take a quick look at 2008. In 2008, the US housing market collapsed due to bad lending practices, causing home prices to drop by an average of 33%. It took the US market about 6 years to recover. In Canada, however, things weren't as bad. Canadian banks were more cautious and the average house prices only dropped by 9%. The market bounced back in just 2 years, thanks to stricter banking regulations and less exposure to risky loans. Sounds good, right? Well, not so fast. To stimulate the economy after 2008 crisis, also known as the Great Recession, the Canadian government and the Bank of Canada kept historically low interest rates, as low as close to 0%. This made borrowing incredibly cheap and people started buying homes like there was no tomorrow. Real estate became the go-to investment not just for Canadians but also for international investors. Of course, as we know, people think real estate is the best and safest investment without fully understanding the risk tied to the mortgages. This pumped up the demand for housing and the prices skyrocketed, but the supply couldn't keep up, and that's where the cracks started showing. Now you might think, wait a minute, Canada is huge, how can there be a housing crisis? Well, here's a fun fact. While Canada is massive on a map, realistically, this is the actual map of Canada. I mean, almost. Because almost 90% of Canadians live within 160 kilometers of the US border. Most of this population is concentrated in urban areas like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. And high demand of housing was hit hard by some limitations. For example, municipal rules and zoning laws in these cities make it extremely difficult to build high-density housing quickly. Construction timelines are unnecessarily long due to complicated government processes. Growing population, especially driven by immigration, has put even more pressure on the urban housing. Which brings us to the next crisis which has put Canada into the situation it's in right now: immigration. Canada is known for its high immigration rates. In fact, it has one of the highest rates among the OECD countries. For years, immigration was seen as the solution to many of the Canadian problems. Canada has an aging population, which means fewer workers in key sectors like construction, healthcare, and tech. So more immigrants meant more taxpayers and more people to work in these industries, especially in construction, to build more homes. It sounded like a win-win, and in 2019, Canada was even ranked as the most welcoming country for migrants. Canadians were proud of their multiculturalism and diversity, and other countries looked to Canada as an example of a great immigration system. So Justin Trudeau's government were confident and viewed immigration as their solution to tackle the housing supply shortage. But here's where things started to unravel. Between mid-2023 and mid-2024, Canada saw a net migration of 1.2 million people. That's a huge number for a country that was not prepared for such rapid growth. The housing market was already struggling, and this population boom made things worse. Suddenly, immigrants were competing with locals for housing and jobs. Businesses started exploiting immigration system to hire cheaper labor, which only added fuel to the fire. Locals became frustrated, resources were stretched thin, and tensions started rising. Fast forward to today, and 6 out of 10 Canadians now say there is too much immigration. This has caused a lot of the fallout. Social media is now flooded with angry comments like mass deportation and fuck Trudeau. What was once a harmonious multicultural society is now seeing divisions. People are blaming immigrants for lack of affordable housing and jobs, even though it's not their fault. They are just trying to make a better life for themselves. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has admitted that his government miscalculated the numbers. In response, they have introduced some changes, for example, reducing immigration targets for 2025 by 105,000 people, removing job offer points in the express entry system to prioritize other categories, giving preference to French-speaking immigrants. But let's be real, these measures feel like too little, too late. Trudeau's approval ratings have tanked to just 16%. His party lost support from their coalition with the New Democratic Party, and even his own party turned against him, forcing him to finally resign. So what is the bigger picture? While the government is scrambling to fix things, ordinary people are suffering from the brunt of the crisis. Renters are struggling to keep up with the skyrocketing prices. Homebuyers, especially millennials, have given up on the dream of owning a house. Workers are taking on 2 to 3 jobs just to survive, leaving them little to almost no time for their families. And then there is the racial tension. Canada, once celebrated as a land of inclusion, is now dealing with divisions. Immigrants who once dreamed of building a life here are returning to their home countries, disillusioned and hopeless. Canadians are also leaving. Most of them are heading south of the border to the US in search of better opportunities. So can Canada recover? Well, there is no quick fix for this mess. The housing crisis, immigration challenges, and economic struggles are all deeply interconnected. Fixing one issue won't magically solve the others. But one thing is clear: blaming immigrants won't help. They came here because they believe in the Canadian dream, a dream that government failed to prepare for. It's up to the policymakers to create a system that works for everyone, where resources are managed better and opportunities are available to all. Canada has always been a country of hope and opportunity. Let's hope it can rebuild that image before things get worse. Things are already starting to change in the US with the new President Donald Trump in the office, and if you want to learn how to take advantage and make some profit from Trump's presidency in 2025, check out this video where I discuss about the potential opportunities ahead. Until next time, stay safe.